The reason why Elon Musk or Richard Branson or all these people are so good is because if you feel something is wrong, don't close your eyes and hope it goes well, because
Welcome to a new episode of Business Meets Life. And today we're traveling to beautiful south of France to meet Swiss-German Dr. Priscilla Schelp. Dear Priscilla, thank you so much for making time for us. And you are a serial entrepreneur. You are, for me, an absolute role model. And I'm so glad, thanks to the power of connections and relationships, that Johannes, who I've interviewed 1 year ago for my podcast, that he introduced me to you. Now, because you have so many different kind of startups. Now, being German, I remember they always said, oh, you gotta focus, and people were quite judgmental. So what do you think? Like many women, they seem to have like different kind of passions and strengths. And then people are saying, hey, you can't focus. And I could say this exactly to you with somebody who does event curation, you do things on AI, disaster prevention. What's your advice or your takeaway on this?
don't listen to other people. No. So the thing is, I think it's something that is getting better, and it's coming from history. So probably you remember, like, especially if you're German, your parents working in a company for 20, 30 years. And a good career path would look like that, focused on loyalty, that you basically would work your way up in Bosch or in Mercedes or this very traditional companies. The thing is, if you look at the statistics nowadays, it's like if you're not switching your job, if you're employed every, I think, 2.5 years, you're missing significantly out on salary, because even if you're treated well in your company, you will not jump that far, right? And I think one cool thing about the internet is that nowadays you see people, well, that's questionable, but becoming influencers, selling self-made things on, I don't know, platforms, doing digital marketing from Bali. So I think it's now more acceptable, to be honest. Like, I did many things and my parents were embarrassed about it. They are still
Oh,
a
wow.
bit. And I think a lot of people are like that. But so if you compare to yourself with, like, if you compare yourself to your parents, you might think like, oh my God, like I'm not focused, I'm not consistent, or maybe older people shame you for it because they are used to something else. But if you're, for example, look like at the people that who you want to be like, I don't know, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, they are
Mhm.
they mastered certain entrepreneurial and other skills that are transferable to all kind of sectors. And what they try to do, and I think that's something we should aim for, is to maximize all potential, because we are not just here to be, wealthy and to have nice things, but also to give back. So I think we can change the perspective by using other people we compare to and we see as role models. Yeah.
I love it. I know to Dan, loyalty, missing out on salary if we don't switch jobs, and especially women are often underselling themselves. And yeah, it's all about like maximizing our potential. Now, you have a PhD in like leadership and management. However, you have a very interesting way in how you got started. Like you're an absolute expert in disaster prevention. I remember you've worked on, was it the Singapore airport back in the days? Can you share with us a little bit in terms of disaster prevention? Like, are there any trends or in which direction is this going nowadays?
Yeah, well, so the thing is, I started as an underdog to correct yourself. And that's why I always say everything is possible for everyone. It's just you have to be a fighter and you have to listen to what you think about yourself and your potential. So that's the one thing. The other thing is that, so I never thought, I mean, if you are small, like I thought I become an animal doctor, or then I thought I want to be on a boat because I like boats, right? No one dreams as a kid to be in risk management or disasters. So I think one lesson here is to be open for what life brings you. A lot of people go through life like that, and they miss out on a lot of opportunities. So I was always guided by my gut feel of things. So I would always take on any opportunities coming to me. I would always read, meet people. So you basically maximize chances of opportunities coming to you. And then you listen to your gut. Well, does it feel exciting, even if it's something completely different? And so that's how I ended up in risk management. And yes, I mean, obviously, one of the big trends is AI. And basically, I think AI can help a lot optimizing models in early detection of different types of disasters. And I mean, there are some things that work very well, and there are some gaps. So obviously, there are a lot of analysis for things in life where there's a lot of money, because if there's a lot of money to be lost, there's a lot of money to be made, right? So you have disaster management for companies, for supply chains, like not just for them, but also the upstream supply chain, for example. But what's a bit missing is also like disaster, like solutions for individuals to protect themselves, their families, and their assets. And I think there will be, what you can see is, and there's a very interesting book, it's called Unscaled, that we are used to these huge companies like Microsoft and SAP and Apple and so on. And what happens through AI, that it has never been easier to found a business. And so everyone, there will be much more customized solutions that are built by not someone in a garage, but in their home, that buy chunks of the markets of these big companies because they are better in their specific field. So I think what we see, that everything will be much more, I think, fragmented, and these monopolies are a bit being dissolved. That's my opinion also in the disaster space.
Thanks for sharing. So as a leader, manager, serial entrepreneur with your expertise, and I know you focus a lot on Europe, you're building up more and more, also Asia, you do a lot also in the USA, you're globally expanding, and we nearly would have met in Shanghai. So what are some of the most critical leadership traits that you have observed that help organizations navigate high stake situations?
I think it's curiosity. And whatever you do in the world, it's about people. And I think you're very good in it yourself. Like, you're very interested in people, what drives them. You study them not because it's like a chemistry lesson or something, but because you really care and you're curious what the other people's interests are, and you ask questions. And I think one of the biggest lessons I learned, instead of most people make assumptions. And I learned that from one person that kind of mentored me a bit. And he always said, like you're making assumptions again. And every time you make assumptions, it's like you don't learn anything, and often assumptions are wrong. So I think what you see, the most successful people just ask questions. Like you, for example, you do your podcast, right? You're asking people all the time. You're learning more now than I do at the moment, because you are asking and I'm just answering. And I think that's the biggest or the most important skill is to ask high quality questions.
Yeah, thanks for sharing it. It's a skill that we actually have to learn, and AI makes it so much easier nowadays to ask those high value questions. Let's talk about your Networks X services. I love the hat, by the way. So you're basically curating elite communities. I mean, you are one of the most amazing connectors I have met. You're so open to sharing, to synergies, bringing people together. I really love that about you. So you work with Networks X Services is all about creating high trust networks for your top tier clients. Now, in nowadays world, what does trust actually mean, especially in like a digital age? And how do you ensure that your community, like how do you ensure it in your community curation?
That's a complex question. That's a good one. That's a good one. So I think generally, if you have a guest list and you want to have a particular type of people there for various reasons, right? You get hard criteria like I want to have C-level, I want to have a CEO, I want to have a high net worth with that net worth, or I want to have like a leader of company size, so many employees. These are like typical thresholds you get. However, if you invite people and then you have people that are very nasty, right? That are discriminating, that people will not feel comfortable, and one person will be enough to destroy basically a whole event or a whole community. And
Wow.
so I guess what trust means, first of all, especially in the high net worth space, for example, you have people that pretend to have a family office or
Mm-hmm.
pretend to have a high net worth club. So if you're, for example, contacted on LinkedIn and there's like some high net worth club, always do proper due diligence. And I mean, there are even conference providers that it occasionally happens that someone like that sneaks in. And
Mm.
the dangerous thing is that those people can create big damage by, and there was a big scandal in Germany not long ago, where
Oh,
people, for example, surround themselves with celebrities and then they collect money for something, and the person is not legitimate, or like crypto, you have that a lot, you have a lot of
yeah.
fraud, right? So people really lose money, right? And you don't want to be the event organizer where people got ripped off, for example.
Yeah,
That's just one
absolutely.
thing, but the other thing is also that, yeah, that in I like we are all people. What do we want? We want to be able to be ourselves, like to be authentic. We want to feel the other person is authentic. We want to have the feeling, in ideal, that I don't know, maybe a friendship can evolve, or you can do business with each other, but you need to, you need to have a good time is a beginning. And so we
Mm.
try to have like a big percentage that we kind of know they are decent. And then we also invite people that we don't know that well, and then we look how they behave and what the feedback is, right?
Mm.
You cannot do that if you invite all people new and you don't know like any of them very hard, because you need to have some trusted people that give you feedback. That's, for example, one way how we ensure that basically everyone is behaving okay.
Yes, thanks for
Yeah.
sharing. Now let's speak about global recognition and impact. You've basically spoken recently again at the United Nations. You have organized events at the Munich Security Conference. What have these global stages taught you about influence, diplomacy, and responsibility?
I think the biggest thing is, and that's something, mistakes that women do more than men, and it makes me like want to shake someone. It's like a lot of people, even still, sometimes I invite them to, it just recently happened with a female leader, and I invited her to like one of the top events in the world, right, in security. And she told me, oh, I'm so busy. And didn't you look properly? It's not in my focus area. And I'm like, seriously, it's like, this is one of the top events like, it's the top event in the world. And you are basically giving me crap for inviting you. If it would have been a guy, right? It doesn't matter, even if it would not have been in their field, they would have been grateful and appreciative. I mean, it did not even cost, like, it didn't cost money, right? It was a free invite to, like, I mean, it's an honor to be invited. And I think the main thing, and this is in investment, is I go to all kind of events because I love to learn, I love to meet new people. And so the
Yeah.
key thing here is Like, don't go through life like I'm in compliance. I just go to compliance event. I am in fashion. I just go to fashion events. And I live
Yeah.
in Germany, so I just go to German events. It's like, honestly, that's the worst thing you can do because nowadays in the world, everything is connected. So if
Mm-hmm.
you focus on that area, the reason why Elon Musk or Richard Branson or all these people are so good is because they watch everything. They watch all the industries, they watch what happens in all the regions in the world, and they can see trends coming. They can identify technologies or trends in one completely different sector and can think,
Mm.
oh, that's so amazing. That could work in that industry as well.
Mm.
If you're just focusing on your area, you cannot do that. And also, like in your life, in ideal, and I always say that, in ideal, whatever happens to you in life, you want to have someone you can call, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and I think that's the most important thing. And that's why I'm super grateful to be there. And it's like there's generally no one that's not interesting. And basically, one of the other things, if, at the important events, a lot of people do research. And there's nothing wrong about research. Who are the most important people at the event? What happens? All the
Mm.
people, majority of people flock around the important people, and then the people stand around all alone. I go to all the other people, a part of the important people, because most of them, there's a reason why they're invited. So usually they're
Mm-hmm.
very resourceful, they're super good, they are super well connected, and a lot of people try to make this direct catch. But if you want to
Mm.
go fast, and this is actually scientifically proven, you go, we call it Bande, also die Bande spielen. So you don't go directly to the person, but you go through someone else. Usually it's faster.
Wow. So many good tips. I think you've mentioned again, like the transferable skills, which you have spoken about in the beginning. And even sometimes when I have the chance to work with some future graduating students, I always tell them it's all about the transferable skills. And I loved all
Yeah.
the advice you gave us on how to actually network. I also feel like maybe this is the thing because we're like German or you're Swiss German, it's a culture thing that networking, like going back to intercultural communication, your network is not as important as if you went to Asia, for example, like China. It's something we're constantly like being reminded every single day. Like your visa might get refused 5 times, but if you know the right person, it's all about your relationships again. No matter what's happening, you will be fine.
So I think you're doing a lot of things right, and that's why it's my pleasure to be here because I think your eyes are sparkling if you talk about other people and events, and you're very curious, right? And I think that's super. I think that's super important. I think in Germany or Switzerland, it's the same. It's a bit less obvious. But I
Mm-hmm.
think there's another thing. I think in Germany, especially in employment, there's a lot of competition. And for me, competition is usually it's completely unnecessary. And what you
Yeah.
see on the top is you collaborate. You sell each
Mm.
other parts of your business, you swap parts of your businesses, you bring each other clients and so on. So this whole competition mindset, what you have a lot, like on the bottom, you have it on the bottom. And you are
Yeah.
on the bottom because of it. And that's what many people don't realize.
That's a wonderful reminder. Also, like when we go to different like women communities here in Shanghai or other cities, that is so sad that people are fighting against each other. Also, like women instead of uplifting. And this is what made you so special and stand up immediately. We haven't even spoken for 5 minutes, and you're already there to connect me. I haven't even asked
You
for it.
too, by the
Now,
way. You too.
thank you. Now I
No,
got a
thank
new
you.
coach in Dubai only thanks to you and so many other things. So that is just impressive. Now I've been wondering, you have so many different startups, and I think like nearly every day you're posting on LinkedIn. I love your LinkedIn posts. You provide always so much value. You're uplifting people. You're inspiring. There's so much I can learn. Guys, follow her on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and so on. But at the same time, you're also not just doing a lot of things publicly, but also in stealth mode. Isn't this somehow like the contrary?
Well, so I think so. If you look at LinkedIn, I'm posting a bit less. I think LinkedIn, if you look at people's LinkedIn profiles, like most people look like they are a genius, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very good to put out your positive traits, your achievements, but I think we're creating a lot of mental pressure like on LinkedIn, on Instagram, because everyone's life looks perfect, everyone looks super successful, and people
Yeah.
know their own flawed life, which is normal, right? So what I try to do is try to post things that are not just like, look how awesome I am, but I try to add value. And I think that's one thing I would wish from most people on LinkedIn, and people feel it. I mean, people feel your intention if you post something, right? They can.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing is, I think first of all, it's posting what you think adds value to people. Also, I think it's not smart to show, like, it's not good to show off, is one thing. And the other thing is, if things are in the process of getting to life, right? I mean, it's like
Mm-hmm.
your baby, and it forms itself, it slowly starts breeding. It's very vulnerable. And that's one thing. So actually, sometimes you might want to wait a bit longer until your baby is stable. And maybe it might be that you need to incorporate it. There are certain checks that you need to pass. So where things can still go wrong, it might be things where
Mm-hmm.
you need to patent things. You don't want people, like usually in most regards, it's good to go out with your idea and to get feedback. But with some technological things that you want to have some protection, I don't know, of the brand, of the technology, and then it makes sense to be in stealth mode. Or another reason might be, and that was also one where we worked in stealth mode for a long time, is just because you think your ideas are great, it doesn't mean that your ideas are great. So that
Yeah.
decides the market. And then you want to test with certain groups and get feedback to see, do they even want it? Do they want any of what I offer, or is the need something completely different? And
Mm.
then it's fine. I mean, because you try to maximize the value you have. And that's, I think, more important than just looking awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
I think at this part, it's still a very good reminder that, like we Germans, we usually want to be 150% perfect before we actually launch that product, that new startup. Whereas something that I've literally learned from living in China and living in the US or the Silicon Valley approach, it's like 80% quality or is good enough. And then you really got to go out and test it with the client and get feedback and adjust it.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, I learned something in consulting, and you can actually kind of adopt it to the startup world. There are two approaches how you can create a project or service. One is that you think about something in your little room and
Mm-hmm.
brain your brain and come out with something and then go to the client and try to sell it. This is very hard because just if you think it's awesome, it doesn't mean that's really needed. Or you
Yeah.
can actually start talking to your clients and try to find a client that has a problem, pays you some money to solve it, and then you look who else has the problem. And that is also in the startup world the better way. I kind of, with my first startup, I did it a bit. I did a bit of testing, but not enough testing, to be honest. And then I built a very beautiful product. And I think if I would have tested further, I would have built it differently. And nowadays,
Mm.
and I think in Germany, it always, and that's what you said, needs to look perfect and needs to look good, because failure is something very horrible. And
Yeah.
my learning is nowadays, if I think about building new products or new startups, is that I find customers, I think what is actually the value the product or the startup would give to the person. And I try to offer it in a manual way, right? In form of consulting, coaching, building something very like not fancy, right? Very, very basic, and then get feedback. And then I would test it with others. And then if it works well, you can think about how I can make it more optimized. How can I make it more
Yeah.
whatever. But a lot of people fail or burn so much money. And as a founder, you don't have money. Like
Yeah.
typically if you bootstrap, a lot of people, it's basically ego. It's
Yeah.
ego and it's a perceived or expected pressure. A lot of times it's not even the pressure, it's about the expectation management you do or don't do. Right? If you go out and say, like, walk around, it's like, oh, I'm building this amazing website and this amazing AI platform and so on. Obviously, you create the expectation that is focused on the platform. If you create the expectation towards what is the value, honestly, they don't give a shit about what, like, in what form it comes. And you say,
Yeah.
look, I'm testing your, like, it's an honor, you're my pilot customer. And then everything else evolves.
That's true. I love how you actually just communicated this. And also, this was not a failure that you had this realization. And it also helped you to eventually do things differently for your upcoming startups. Also, mentioning the ego part. Now that I'm working with Henry Maya, who you introduced me to from Dubai or in Dubai, he also was really saying the reason why he's so successful is because he learned from some of the world's most successful people, but he also had to let go of the ego part because so often it's absolutely in our way. We are blind. We can't see and act in a specific way, cannot adopt other people's advice either. And that's again why I'm so grateful for having coaches so that I don't make mistakes like others did, or interviewing amazing people like you so that we can learn from you. Yeah.
I
We
mean, that's the
have,
same with your, sorry, please.
no, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's the same as your podcast. I mean, I don't know if you remember when you started your podcast, right? If you start, sometimes at the beginning, you don't have everything at once, right? And so
Mm,
it just evolves. But it's like at the beginning, it's a way how you communicate it and you're just being transparent, and then it's okay. Like people, like successful entrepreneurs will not shame you for testing stuff. They will
yeah.
not shame you for having things in progress. So the people that shame you, and that's also an interesting information, are the ones that don't even dare to start.
Yeah,
So if you get crap from someone, it's usually an indicator not something is wrong with you, but
with them.
the other way around.
So good learning. I think like intrapreneurs or bigger corporation can definitely cut a piece from you as well, from your advice. Now, you've already mentioned a couple of ways on how you think, what your attitude is. We have seen some of your values, your way of doing. You're a serial entrepreneur. What else do you think has gotten you to that kind of success? And also beyond this, I'd love to hear if you have another like sharing with us of maybe one of your biggest failures in your professional life before. But you wanted to mention
Oh,
something else.
yeah, well, so the thing is, just I mean, I'm honored that you call me a super connector and a serial entrepreneur.
You
I
are.
would never call myself that, and I would always say like people that call themselves super connectors or super networkers always treat it with caution, because like most people that are really good at it would never dare
Mm,
to name themselves that. With serial entrepreneurs, I would love to be one. What for me personally means serial entrepreneurs if you have successfully exited companies. And I must
I see.
clarify that I have not exited any company. So I would not call myself a
Yet.
serial entrepreneur either. And it's nice to hear all that words, but if and how it works out, you always see in retrospective. So I would say it's like I'm like everyone else, learning, trying, and adding value. And yeah, and failures, I mean, there's a lot of failures as for I think most entrepreneurs. And if you don't have failures, you didn't try enough, is my opinion. I think the biggest thing is, and it was super painful. I think it was one of my worst experience in entrepreneurship is that with my first startup, I originally had two co-founders. Because, and that was wrong. I thought I would not make it alone. And when I see nowadays entrepreneurs with like 20 years, 18 years, 24 years, I really admire their courage so much because I never would have deliberately founded a startup by myself because I would not have thought that I would make it. Like I'm really risk averse. That's what most people don't think. And I think one big mistake is that I felt it's not really right with the co-founders, but I was so full of fear that I was sticking to them um, as long as I could. And it would have been better for me to believe more in myself and really to go for it because things that are not meant to be, they fall apart. And the falling apart was horrible. So my first co-founder, so I had two, right? The first co-founder called me. So he had two startups before. One he exited successfully. The other one went bust in COVID. And he called me on Christmas and told me, Priscilla, sorry, I cannot do it. I cannot do it because since the one failed, I'm scared. I need stability, which I totally understand. And it
Yeah,
was
we
a
all
bit
do.
sad, and we are still in touch. But so the second one was even worse. So I'm not a techie, right? And the second one was supposed to build my technology. And he communicated to me, it's nearly ready. We can launch next week. And there was always some delay why it didn't happen. And I got cautious and I told my board member, hey, can you check? And so one stupid thing there, I didn't have access to the code. So I asked him, hey, can you give me access to the code? And my tech board members offered him to help him to code and review. And basically, so they reminded him he didn't share the code and what happened. And it's more common in Asia. It was a Singaporean, by the way, right? So what's more common is ghosting in the business context. So what happened is, so instead of handing over the code and let the other people, so I always offered him help, my board members as well. I think he was probably so embarrassed because he somehow got stuck. He just vanished. Like he literally like deleted all his social media profile. I thought maybe something bad happened to him. He jumped off I don't know, off the building or something. So it seems he's fine, but he didn't dare. And I mean, I'm very kind. I think most people that know me, like I would never have been like mean or jump in his face, but he preferred, or I don't know, preferred, but he did not see another way than to disappear. And for me, that was the worst. So I was worried first that what is going on, if he's okay. I was completely on my own. I had communicated to all my customers that they get technology next week, and I had to tell them I
Oh,
don't have anything.
oh no.
So
That's, well, losing face, as we call it in Asia, right?
Well, so the learning is if you feel something is wrong, don't ignore it, but look for plan B, C, D. Don't close your eyes and hope it goes well, because most likely it will not. You feel things before they happen. And also, like, it's better to found alone than with someone wrong. I mean, I was lucky that it happens before incorporation. If it happens after incorporation, it's much worse because then you have
Yeah.
someone that owns a part of your company, doesn't do anything. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for opening up and sharing this with us. So, yeah, I actually had, now that I started this new company, Podcast Genie Marketing, I spoke to a friend who has a successful digital marketing agency, a friend in China. He has already sold two companies, very successful. I always look up to him. And
That's a
he said,
serial
why?
entrepreneur.
Yeah. And he was like, why don't you open with somebody? And he was saying, oh, like by himself, he would not have been able to come so far. And he has always had a co-founder. And with the same co-founder, he now had the second company at the same time. And I really started to think about it. But I've never found the right person where I could say, hey, it does fit. Or I realized because it's like a relationship. At one point, maybe the vision is different. You kind of live apart. And I felt like, well, you can still have like partnerships, and it's just a different kind of structure. So that's why, again, I just did it by myself.
Yeah, I think if I may comment on that one, I think it's better to do it on your own than with someone wrong. What you describe or what I experience is not uncommon. So many women are solopreneurs because they don't find the proper co-founder. I think there are different things. So I'm theoretically open also to a co-founder regarding one of my first companies, but I have never been able to get one. And I think, well, it depends on, I think you need to be open and speak. For example, like we spoke now a couple of times. I didn't know that you would consider a co-founder, right? So the first thing is you need to shout it out in the
Yeah.
woods, right? And then see if something comes back. And also you need to be really clear, is that something you want and under what conditions, and what does a person brings? Because our brain does like scouting. It's like a Google search engine. So the thing is, you really need to know what you are looking for, and then if you are aware what you look for, your brain screens for you consistently. So if you haven't entered that information, or if you're not really convinced that's something you want, then your brain will not screen for you. And I think it's completely doable. You meet many people. Yeah. For me, why I didn't find a co-founder is because the space I was in with I am in with my first company is very specific. It's like private clubs, and the experience I made that either some people that are more on the left, they find it basically, for them it's evil because it supports elitism in their mind, while I'm doing the opposite because I increase diversity in the clubs, right? Then the other thing is, a lot of people, if they don't come from privileged background, they have the problems that they don't feel good enough, they feel they don't know enough about it. And so in that field, it's more that a lot of people have, and that's why I have my startup, there's a lot of hesitation and a lot of assumptions on how clubs are. And I think that was for me the reason why I probably never got a co-founder. And also, people really now need to love people and be connectors, and they're not that many, because being a connector, like, people glorify it, right? And people talk,
Takes
oh, it's
energy.
amazing, oh, but what does it mean? First of all, I need to meet consistently new people. And then I additionally, instead of what most people do, that they screen for themselves, for their own interest, that they screen for themselves and everyone they know and they appreciate. So your brain capacity, imagine you have one tab open, or you have 40,000 tabs open. And also so you really need to like that. You need to like people, and you need to be interested in generating value. Otherwise, it's like, oh, it's so much work.
Yeah. It really takes a lot of energy, I would say. So
Yeah.
that's why, I mean, one of the next questions I have, and actually I have tons of other questions, but I know we're slowly running out of time. Now, what is something on how our network, and we have people from the East, from the West, how we can contribute to you? Anybody specific who should reach out to you? Anything that you're looking for next to a co-founder for one of your first startups? And you are right. Sometimes we just don't say things out loud.
Oh, that's you got me. I mean, I'm more used to ask other people that question.
I
So,
know, I
uh,
gotcha.
yeah, I mean, so the thing is, I'm always one of the things is obviously that we have customers like corporations, like bigger, smaller media companies, private banks that work with us because they want to, in ideal, meet their future potential customers, right, in a non-salesy way. So that's often the space where we basically put together part of the guest list to bring in high quality people, or companies that want to start communities, right? And we are basically stuffing the seed community. This is also obviously interesting for companies that expand, for example, to other geographies. For example, I mean, you have your specialty, for example, European companies going to China or the other way around, right? In that regards, it's also interesting. Otherwise, yeah, I do a lot of work and I work on something very exciting in the disaster field. So anyone that's excited in how to make the world more safe and resilient, feel free to connect. And otherwise, I'm just interested in meeting exciting people that are collaborative. I don't usually go out with like clear goals because and I think that's why, Janine, that's what we have in common. We like connecting with people is we look for people we enjoy spending time with, so it doesn't feel like hard work. And then we see how we can support each other and what we can do. And that's why everyone with a kind heart that's collaborative and, just is also maybe impact driven, feel free to reach out and let's have a chat.
I love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, we connected immediately on an instant. That was very interesting. Okay, we're not done yet. I have a couple more questions for you. I cannot let you go yet.
Oh,
We spoke so much about your success, and I have one more important work topic because I know you're an expert in public relations. And recently we had a meeting with you and one of your partners. And although I studied marketing, although I studied business and so on, I feel like I had no idea about PR. Tell us a little bit like why PR is actually so important, and maybe you have like one advice for all the companies out there, because I feel like that's like a hidden spot, whether Asia or in the West.
yeah, I mean, it's something that we offer as well nowadays. So the funny thing is, I'm still not an expert in PR, but I have, luckily, through my network, I have a great team of PR experts. I mean, so usually what I did not know is like you usually have a marketing PR concept. So it's basically aligned, and the
Mm-hmm.
marketing is more, um, and marketing with PR is, for example, it's like all kind of relations with the press, that everything that you communicate in some form, written, oral, it's somehow aligned that you have with your overall strategy. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one example where it's definitely very needed is like if you publish things in the media, if you want to get into the media, if media approach you and you're being interviewed, it's like you probably saw some funny snippets on Instagram or TikTok. You don't want to end up as a meme, right? And
Mm.
so what I think a lot of companies, and I also didn't know, right, for a long time, is everyone thinks that you get PR when you are a very big company, but actually it is
Yeah.
very valuable to start quite early. And so what you usually do is, as I said, so you have a marketing PR concept, so that basically you define for yourself, okay, what do you communicate, how to communicate, which media are interesting for us, who are the journalists that are interested in my content. And in ideal, we are not just talking about paid media. Like you can honestly to have like half a page in a newspaper paid or one page, it's like you are easily a 6 digit. It's not a problem.
Wow.
Very expensive, right? And if you do your job right and you invest a bit in PR, you understand how the journalists work and you get in ideal featured for free because you prepare content in the way and you build up relations to the significant people so that you don't have to spend this huge amounts on paid content, but in
Yeah.
ideal you have like a mix, right? And also, I mean, if you grow and you're successful and or even to become successful, what you can do is that you have an external, either it's visible as an external agency on your website or you have an internal PR department. And so basically before you send anything out to journalists, before you speak to them, they train you, they will review what makes sense. Also, there are some media firms or some journalists that are tricky that try to get you into a trap, right? So all of that is
Mm.
basically is they are safeguarding you and they are creating opportunities. And I think that's a great thing why I started. My
Yeah.
biggest mistake here, I got advice on, oh, you're a startup, either media need to discover you, or you need to pay big chunks of money. And that
I
was
see.
bullshit advice. So be careful whose advice you listen to.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was so grateful that I actually met you, because then we had a session with one of my entrepreneur friends in China. We also spoke to him about PR, because he's now extending beyond China, different countries, and is a luxury brand. So
I love his
that was
idea.
super
It's
great.
like I'm still thinking of it because it's yeah, I was very, very fond of him and
Yes,
his
things
idea.
will continue. Okay, before we're closing up, I know we spoke so much about work, but tell me a little bit. I know we Europeans, we like to separate work and private life, but what makes you happy? Are you happy? Are there specific kind of habits or things that you are doing to balance like all the different time zones you're working on, all the different companies that you are managing, all these people you are connecting around the world?
Yeah, so the thing is, I think you need to love what you do and you need to have the feeling that you have impact. And I think you feel what makes you feel good. And I found out
Mm.
life is quite simple. You don't need much. So for me, it's sunshine, palm trees, walking by the seas, and good food. And I'm happy. And obviously great people, but it's I think one thing I underestimated is like you need to love where you live. So I had places before where I moved for work and so on, and I could not wait to get into the plane to escape. This is not a good
Mm.
sign. You should set up your life that you don't want to escape from it through
Mm.
weekends, through, I don't know, holidays or something. And yeah, I think that's
I love it. You need to love where you live, instead of wanting to escape. I think this is a great way to end up this session here. Do you have any last words to our listeners around the world?
yeah, listen to Janine because she's actually in court. Like you're basically, so I feel it's a bit, I don't even need to tell you because you are like that. And that's why I think it's great that you do the podcast. So listen to Janine is my advice.
I love it. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved today's session with Dr. Priscilla Schelp, sharing is caring, send it to your friends and colleagues around the world. Let's go viral. Hit the subscribe button and see you for the next session. Thank you, Priscilla.
Janine.